Hello and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I am your host, Dennis Patholkas, and tonight it's Gotham, Season 5, Episode 6, 13 Stitches. And not a bad episode, honestly. It was, again, a lot of fun. It was kind of interesting. I was sick last week, viral pneumonia. And so I thought I missed an episode, but they happened to take the week off, which was interesting. So there was, no Gotham, no Orville, anything like that. So yeah, I was lucky. I didn't have to miss anything here. So let's get started here. Spoiler alert, I am going to be spoiling the episode. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. Come on back. This will be a video, and you can comment down below in the comment section. Oh, excuse me. And I will be coughing from time to time. I'm still getting over things. I'm almost done. Almost done with whatever this thing is living in my chest. It's like the freaking alien here. So, we left off pretty much where we left off in episode 5 with Gordon running away from Ed, a controlled Ed, and Ed's got Gordon's gun. And Gordon's running through the streets of Gotham and getting shot at by Ed and comes across an abandoned ambulance, fights Ed inside of it, and then grabs the defibrillator paddles and fries Ed's head, frying the chip inside, doing exactly what he did with the car batteries and the yokels that had him up to the makeshift electric chair. And we see the Penguin going down into his little room that he's got there, his secret room. And he catches a woman stealing one of his diamonds. A big diamond, actually, I should say. One of his diamonds. It's a huge diamond. It's the Rutherford diamond. And she throws him a replica that she was going to leave him. And that thing heats up. He drops it and it explodes. And she gets away in the confusion, of course. So he's pretty pissed off at this point. Gordon ends up taking Ed with him back to GCPD because the chip in his head might have evidence in it, which of course it always does. Usually when he says it's got some evidence in it, that's what they're going to be using for evidence in the show. Excuse me. Bruce and Alfred end up talking at the GCPD, and they're talking about the soldiers and, where's the humanitarian aid and all that stuff. They see the soldiers, but no food, water, all that kind of stuff for the people. And then Alfred notices one of the tattoos on the soldiers' arms and says, these guys are bad guys. They're not known for humanitarian efforts. They're usually known for going in and killing everybody. So Bruce decides to go up and ask, when stuff coming in and all this stuff. And of course, because he's asking too many questions, they end up getting a room in a cell that's going to go in the back of GCPD, and they get an armed escort going back there. And of course, they knock out their armed escorts and decide to go and find Gordon because Gordon hasn't shown up yet. And we know why, because Eduardo, we know, works for someone named Walker, who is trying to kill everybody in Gotham, what it sounds like. So Penguin ends up finding Selina. Excuse me, I take that back. Before we do that, Gordon ends up walking Ed over to Barbara's, and Barbara wants to basically fix up Jim's wound. He's got like a little wound on his neck there from Ed shooting at him. And Ed decides to go off and go get the first aid kit. And just as he leaves to go get the first aid kit, who shows up but Eduardo and his goons? Because they know that that's the first place he's going to go, is where his ex-fiance's pad is going to be at. So, yeah, fairly interesting that, he ends up there. And Ed shows up, still pretending to be under the control of the chip, brings a butcher knife with him, and big one of those big butcher knives that you see in the cartoons, runs towards Gordon and winks at him, lets him know that he's not under control. And Gordon comes up with a story saying that, I've got evidence against you and Walker, and, if you kill me, you'll never get it. Yeah, the meat cleaver. Thank you, Filthy News. Butcher knife, meat cleaver. And Eduardo stops Ed from, killing him, and then says, I don't care. He goes, kill them both, is what he tells Enigma. And Ed turns around with the meat cleaver and throws it and hits a soldier in the head. And that's when all the other soldiers bring up their guns and they dive for cover behind the bar. And Barbara's got her guns. And there's a shootout that ensues, and they skedaddle out the side door away from Eduardo and his men. So, excuse me. Penguin ends up finding Selena in an abandoned building, and these two guys go running, screaming out the door. And he's like, what the hell do they want? And she goes, well, ever since I killed Jeremiah, word's gotten out, and everyone wants a shot at the top. So they all come by trying to take me on, and, it's getting tiring. She goes, I'm going to have to find another crash pad. And he says, well, if you help me out, he goes, you can stay at my place. And he says, someone stole from me, and he tells her, what she did. And of course, Selena knows who this person is. It's Magpie is the name of the person. I'll get to that in a minute, Brian Fisher. I'll get into I'll start answering questions. Let me go over the recap first, then I'll go into the questions here. So we end up, she says that, if she helps him find Magpie, she wants a diamond as payment, and he agrees to it. So they take off to go and look for her. Excuse me. Eduardo finally announces why he's there at GCPD and kills 3 people, executes them pretty much, and says that he is there to kill the criminal element and Gotham. And that's pretty much everybody. So they consider everyone criminals at this point. Why he didn't just start, hosing down the cells, I don't know. Because I do know it's because it's Fox, it's Gotham. They need to draw this out a little bit more. But it was a little bit on the weird side, that's all. So, and also, Eduardo gets a call from Walker saying, hey, good night, Filthy. Yeah, I kind of figured, it's a late one for you guys on the East Coast there. So Lucius ends up removing the chip from Ed's head and says that, of course, it has a record of all the verbal commands that were in there. So he's got a record of everything that everyone's said to him. And he can get that out, even though the chip's damaged, and they can use that as evidence, of course. In the meantime, Eduardo calls Jim over the radio and lets him know that they have Lee. And they want to trade. He wants to trade Lee, of course, for Ed. And Gordon agrees. And, of course, Ed's like, what the hell, man? He goes, I'm not, I didn't agree to this. And Gordon says, you know what? We're just going to give him the chip. That's all he wants anyway. So he tells him to meet him at Haven because he wants to show him all the destruction that he's caused. And we don't know exactly what his rationale is for this at the moment. So they're going to end up broadcasting the chip to the mainland, and they figure out, the antennas on top of GCPD that they need to get to. And of course, Lucius has the equipment to broadcast it out as well. They just need the antenna. So Lee can't remember what the hell happened to her after, the bridges blew. She's talking to Harvey in the cell. And just after that, Eduardo takes her to Haven so that they can meet up with Jim. And Jim's got, of course, Barbara, Ed, Bruce, Alfred, and Lucius all on his side. They're doing their own part. They've got their own things that they're going to do to thwart Eduardo. And so Jim ends up luring Eduardo into a fist fight by telling him about what he did, all the people that he got killed because he was so headstrong and just rushed into things and never thought things through. And that's why he was kind of horrible to work with, in the military. And so this pisses off Eduardo enough to say, you know what, let's hash this out now. And they end up getting into a fist fight. This is after, of course, Jim has destroyed the chip, telling him this is what you wanted, and that's to destroy the chip. So Penguin and Selena end up catching to Magpie in her room, and she ends up throwing another artifact at him, saying it's a bomb, and closes the door and says everything in the room is an explosive, and leaves him at that and says goodbye and locks the door on them. And so, of course, they got to figure a way out of this explosive-laden room. So Ed walks into the GCPD in a bomb suit that he's borrowed from the basement and a briefcase bomb. And he gives them a riddle. He says, Yeah, to the soldiers inside there, he goes, yeah, this suit is, Kevlar proof. It can withstand a bomb blast. He goes, so your guns aren't going to do anything. He goes, but if you answer the riddle within 2 minutes, you can save yourself from the bomb, and that'll do it. This is actually part of a bigger plan because they're trying to, Lucius and Bruce and Alfred and all them are trying to release gas into the GCPD to knock everyone out. So Ed is basically the bait at this point. And Ed's riddle is pretty funny. He's actually talking about mice on an island and how fast they grow. And there's a certain type of mice, and he gives them a year, and whatever the however long, whatever the number is of the mice that propagate out of this equation that he's given them, that's the code number for the briefcase bomb. And yeah, it's just pretty damn funny. Yeah, that was actually really good with Ed and Harvey. This season has been fairly decent. They've been going for broke. They know it's the last season, so they really don't care about what they're doing, about what kind of rules they break or anything like that with both Warner Brothers or DC or anything like that. So Bruce goes up and gets the antenna, and of course he gets attacked by a soldier, so he's got to knock out the soldier before he can reverse the fans, so they can get the fans going back into the GCPD so that Lucius can release the gas and let it inside. And also needs to hook up the antenna so that Lucius can broadcast the signal as well. So Eduardo tells Jim that, the reason why they came to Gotham and the reason why Walker came to Gotham was that this whole thing of him saving all the people in Haven, it showed the military that Gotham wasn't overrun by criminals, that it could actually be saved. And that was the reason why the military is ready to send in some humanitarian aid. That's the reason why Walker sent him in, was to basically screw up Jim Gordon's plans and fuck up everything at this point. So yeah, it's, pretty bad. And we still don't know the reason why they wanted to do this, other than to destroy Gotham. We don't really know exactly why. It's just because, mustache twirling. Muhahaha. That's all it is. We don't get a real answer out of it. So Eduardo decides that he's going to have Lee killed anyway. But Jim gets a clip in Eduardo's gun and ends up shooting one of the soldiers. The other soldier grabs Lee and takes off. And Eduardo hits Jim in the back with a rebar and knocks him down. We go back to Ed, and Ed has a minute left on the bomb clock there. And who happens to come up with the answer but Harvey? Harvey Bullock goes, I remember this from my zoology class in high school. He says that species died out in the 1950s, so there's no species of that mouse on the island anymore. So the answer is 0. And Ed's looking at him like, what the fuck? How did you get that answer? And he says, I know this for a fact. He goes, because I got in trouble for it last time. And he goes, I had to write a report on it. And so the soldier pops in 4 zeros and, of course, disarms the bomb. And then they just start shooting at him. Excuse me. Start shooting at Ed. And, of course, Ed's got the bomb-proof suit on. And he's taking all the blasts just as Lucius activates the gas and sends it in. And Ed gets his helmet knocked off. Yeah, that whole exchange where he's, you don't know anything, Harvey. Shut up, Harvey. Yeah, it was pretty good. And he ends up getting the gas in there, and he opens up the case, and the case does not have a bomb, but actually has a respirator in there that he pops on, and, he's good to go because everyone else has been knocked out at this point. So we have Jim and Eduardo fighting again, excuse me, with a rebar, and Eduardo telling Jim about being captured after he went back to the States, after Jim went back to the States, and their whole group got captured and got sent to Penadora, and how it was a hellhole, and Walker found them there and saved him. And he goes, and you got to watch out for her because she's actually the one that will kill everybody. And he punctures, Jim's side with one of the rebar. Jim kicks him off, kicks him back, and a piece of rebar goes right through Eduardo's chest, right through the middle there. And he leaves him there because he hears a gunshot, and thinks that Lee is dead. He runs back over and sees Lee held onto the gun, standing over the body of the soldier. So she's still alive. We don't know how that happened, but we just know that, it happened. So Selena and Penguin are still trapped in the room, and Selena deduces that Penguin is going to leave. He knows he has a way of leaving Gotham somehow, and he needs that diamond in order to set up a life for himself on the mainland or elsewhere in the world. And she wants in on it. And he decides that, okay, if you can get us out of the room, he goes, I'll cut you in for 10%. That's it. And he goes, I won't kill you when we get to the mainland. So she kicks open the door because, as Magpie said, everything in the room is a bomb, not the room itself. So she was able to actually deduce that and, kick open the door. That's one thing I did like about this episode is you're seeing people think things through this time around versus like the Batman movies where it's a lot of action and, Batman is as a detective, the world's greatest detective. And that's something that the movies have been lacking, is showing some detective skills. This show, you get a little bit of detective skills going on in everybody, a little bit of everybody. Not just Bruce. Bruce actually hasn't been showing too much detective skills, but a little bit here and there. So Jim ends up bringing Lee back to GCPD, and they're not sure if the recordings have gotten transmitted out yet or not. Lee doesn't remember the last 3 months. She basically remembers when the bombs happened, when the bridges blew, and that's about it. And then she starts piecing things together, and she goes, wait a minute. I remember Ed stabbing me and me stabbing Ed. We had a big fight. She goes, then I ended up in a hospital someplace. And then she doesn't remember anything else. So we go back to Eduardo. Eduardo is sitting on a rebar still, and he's still alive. A bum goes go and take his shoes, and the guy gets killed. Walker comes out, and she says, our we've been burned. The recordings got out, and we're done for. So she says, that Hugo Strange can fix him up, and straps a mask on him, letting him breathe. And of course, he starts sounding all Bane-ish, of course, because now he's Bane with this mask on. And excuse me. She says they have another operative to work with. There's one more operative. That Ed wasn't the only operative that they had. And of course, we flash back to the office, and we see Lee with her eyes rolling up in the back of her head as Gordon gets up to get something. She grabs a gigantic spike off of his desk, and she's trying to stab him with it. And what does Gordon do? He rips out the wires out of a lamp, which is not as easy to do as it looks. What he did, it backhanded with one hand, and shocks her and knocks out the chip, knocking her out in the process. So everything starts flying fast and furious here near the end here. Literally within this last 5 minutes, we have a lot of stuff that happens. Alfred leaves the apartment after getting, this Bruce in his apartment, getting some stuff together. And he starts hearing his can getting kicked down the street, and he's freaking out a little bit. He's looking around. It's nighttime. He drops the bag, pulls out his gun. He's looking around, and who pops up behind him but Jeremiah, who stabs him in the chest with a syringe, knocking him out. And says that, a butler who's an ex-Special Forces agent, he goes, that's exactly what he's looking for in a butler. And Magpie, Penguin and Selena end up going back to the Penguin's treasure chest, if you will, and find Magpie on the floor with a shotgun wound to the chest, or to the stomach. And he had booby-trapped, of course, his little trinkets that he had there, and she activated one of them, of course, getting shot in the stomach. And she has the diamond with her again, and of course he kills her in front of Selena and says, this is an example of what will happen when people screw me over. Excuse me. So Lee ends up waking up and says, oh my God, is this going to happen again? She doesn't, remember. And they say, okay, we burned out the chip in your head. You're okay. Barbara comes in and says to Gordon, we need to talk. And Jim's like, not right now. And she goes, well, remember that night that we had, a couple nights ago? And she goes, I'm pregnant. And it's like, oh, shit. I don't know how she can get pregnant that fast, how she knew she was pregnant. because it was only like a couple of days. So yeah, it was kind of a weird thing that she knew she was pregnant. But I love Harvey's response. He goes, "Congratulations," after she leaves, which I thought was pretty good. So finally, we see Jeremiah waking up Alfred and telling him about the tunnel that he has underneath the river, and how Bruce is going to be joining them shortly, and it's going to be the most important day. So that is where we ended up leaving off. So let me get to some of the questions here after I, cough out some more stuff here. So Brian Fisher says, I think the league being behind this is a red herring. There's a bigger bad guy. In that flashback from the first episode had Ed and Penguin. Yeah, I don't think it's the league either. Ra's al Ghul is alive, but I don't think the league is behind all this. And opinions on the question mark and the Rorschach detective skills. What do you mean, Joker? Opinions on the question? You mean for the Riddler? Or honestly, people actually showing a little bit of initiative there and actually thinking through stuff for a change is a lot better than what we've seen on these shows in a while. So I'm actually liking that they're showing a little bit of detective skills, even though they're spreading it out amongst everybody. I mean, we started seeing it in Ed at the very beginning of this season, with him trying to piece together what the hell's been happening to him when he's been blacking out, and he was coming close, but then he wasn't coming anywhere near it either. So it was kind of back and forth. So Brian asked, do you think Eduardo is working with Argus or the League? That's a good question. I don't know, to tell you the truth. I don't think it's either one, to tell you the truth. It's kind of funny that this woman is named Walker when we have an Amanda Walter that we know. And, we haven't heard the name Amanda Walter as of yet, who, of course, runs Argus and Suicide Squad and all that kind of stuff. So, excuse me. So maybe we're going to see Amanda Walter at the end of all of this. Or maybe we might see her soon. Darkseid. No, I don't think it's Darkseid. It'll be interesting to see who's behind all of this, though. Am I excited for Doom Patrol tomorrow? Yeah, actually I am. It's I liked the episode on Titans. It was fun. It was actually probably the best episode of Titans, to tell you the truth. So I am looking forward to that tomorrow, and I am covering that tomorrow. So it's on my schedule. If you take a look on my website, suspendedfanimation.com, you'll see the schedules up there. I have moved Future Man. Future Man was going to be on Saturday night. I am now popping that over onto Mondays. Excuse me. Because I've moved that over to Mondays since I'm no longer doing the passage. So Monday nights opened up, and I can actually do Future Man in that spot for what little episodes I have left. And then we'll see what happens from there. But yeah, I also am doing on Tuesday nights Project Blue Book. Wednesday nights is Deadly Class. Thursday nights, as you see here, is Gotham. Tomorrow night, Friday night, is going to be Doom Patrol. Saturdays, I do a little thing called Saturday Morning Blast Off, which is basically all the genre news of the week and pretty much anything genre you guys want to talk about. So it's chat driven, but I also have a lot of the news of the week that's happening as well. And then Sunday, we have the last episode, very disappointing in this, of Counterpart. The season and the series is ending at Stars anyway. Hopefully they get picked up by somebody else. Brian Fish says, I need to catch up on Future Man. I'm 6 episodes in season 1. Yeah, Future Man's really good. I'll tell you that. I've gone through the entire second season already as well, but it's really good. Yes, Joker, Project Blue Book did get renewed for a second season. It very well did. And did you see how Stars with American Gods is going to compete against Game of Thrones? Yeah, Game of Thrones is over with, and American Gods, I'm more disappointed that American Gods got a third season without the second season even coming out. and Counterpart was already decided that they were ending that before second season of Counterpart ever came out. They decided this back in December that Counterpart was done. And I'm sorry, but I think Counterpart's a much better show than American Gods. I'm going to go on record as saying that. So, if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and also hit the like button too. If you don't like what you see, hit the dislike button. Either way. Also, if you want to see when I'm going to be back online with a live broadcast, hit the little bell, the notification bell. There's a 50-50 chance you might actually get a notification by Google. So from YouTube, that might happen. If you're still on the fence, there's going to be a little thing up here with videos that are taken from my library that are kind of tailored to your interests. They actually use the algorithms of all the stuff that you watched and grab stuff from my library to show you what's next. Oh, excuse me. You also see a subscribe button up here as well, so you can decide to subscribe whether or not after you've watched those videos and see if it's something that you like. So other than that, I'm going to let you guys go before I cough too much in your ear, and I will see you all tomorrow for Doom Patrol. Like I said, again, take a look at the subscribe button, take a look at the videos as well. Everyone have a good night. Thank you for joining me. I know it was a late one tonight for some of you guys. And don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you might end up winding up with a chip in your head from this Walker chick.